Hello everyone, my name is Aaron Woodman, and I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to talk about the origins of Nazi Germany and the propaganda it spread across that country. Let's start with talking about Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler joined the German Workers' Party, which would soon be known as a Nazi party. He was the second speaker at the October 19, 1919 meeting. About 100 people attended. He said, quote, "Germany is surrounded by enemies. We have enemies within, corrupting the goodness of our nation. We lost the war because we were stabbed in the back by the Jews," unquote. Hitler's vilification of the Jews succeeded in part because Jews had been vilified in Europe for hundreds of years, especially when they were falsely accused of murdering a little boy I discussed in my previous videos. Hitler, who himself genuinely hated the Jews, used a tried and true stereotype to stir people to anger. On that day, Hitler learned he had the power to mesmerize a crowd. The donations he collected allowed the Nazi Party to advertise and draw more members. After the defeat in World War I, Germany tried to transition from an empire, a government with a traditional source of authority, to a democracy. However, people were mixed about going in this direction. By February 24th, 1920, Hitler was able to draw an audience of 2,000. Here is what he said, quote, "My dear countrymen and women, the master race, the Aryans, created all the great cultures of the ancient world. Egypt was brought to its high level by Aryan immigrants. In ancient Persia and Greece, the great work was done by blonde, blue-eyed Aryans. Outside the civilizations built by Aryans, no greatness exists. The black, dark-eyed, and dark-colored southern races fail to create any important civilizations. Why is this?" Unquote. Quote, "Because Aryans understand the meaning of work. Other races work only when coerced. The impure lesser races infiltrate a nation and destroy the nation's purity. The Jews build nothing. They are nomads. They grip the steel. They are capitalists who add nothing of value but take a piece of everything." Unquote. In 1923, inspired by stories of Mussolini's march on Rome, Hitler and members of the newly formed Nazi Party planned to march against Germany's government and take over by force. When the police broke up the march, Hitler hid in a friend's house. The police found him and arrested him. He was jailed for treason. While in jail, he wrote Mein Kampf. The book contains much rambling and determination in it. Hitler also explains with pragmatic precision how to conquer a nation with disinformation. Hitler used the term propaganda but referred to lies. Here is what he said. Quote, "In the big lie, there is always a certain force of credibility. Because people often tell small lies, they are prepared for those. It would never come into the hands of most people to fabricate a colossal untruth or a large-scale falsehood, and they do not think others would do so either." Unquote. Quote, "Propaganda must always address itself to the broad masses of the people. The receptive powers of the masses are very restricted and their understanding is feeble. They quickly forget. Thus, all effective propaganda must be confined to a few bare essentials, and those must be expressed as far as possible in stereotype formulas." Unquote. Quote, "The art of propaganda consists precisely in being able to awaken the imagination of the public through an appeal to their feelings, and finding the appropriate psychological form that will arrest the attention and appeal to the hearts of the national masses. The correct use of propaganda is a true art." Unquote. Keep in mind that Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, a propaganda/disinformation manual, while he was in jail for an act he committed because he believed Mussolini's lie about his march on Rome. Hitler was released from jail after serving just 8 months of a 5-year sentence for treason. His ban on the Nazi Party was lifted after he swore to never attempt a violent takeover and seek to win office by campaigning and following the law. He gained popularity as he promised to restore the Third Reich, or empire, in Germany. Now, watch Adolf Hitler carefully. He does it exactly right. Notice how he invokes the mythic destiny of the nation. Notice how he identifies and promises to vanquish enemies. Notice how he appeals to the emotions instead of reason and logic. During the 1929 Great Depression in Germany, people were lining up for free coffee and soup. Hitler blamed evil bankers for the Great Depression, and since he made people believe the bankers were run by Jewish people, people blamed Jewish people for the crisis. Hitler knew people were struggling and desperately looking for someone to blame. He painted the narrative that Jewish people were to blame, and people fell in line with that narrative without truly thinking about if it is completely true or not. Let's talk about another individual who became involved with the Nazis, Joseph Goebbels. Goebbels became minister of Nazi propaganda in 1929. He said, quote, "We must think of Germans not as individuals, but as members of a tribe in search of a leader. There are two ways to make a revolution. You can blast your enemy with machine guns until he acknowledges the superiority of those holding the machine guns, or you can transform the nation through a revolution of the spirit," unquote. Goebbels' notion that a nation could be transformed with machine guns or revolution of the spirit harkens back to Katyua's advice to the ancient Indian Emperor Chandragupta that there are two kinds of wars, open and concealed wars. I made a video on this earlier in the video set. A revolution of the spirit is a concealed war, and disinformation is the weapon. The Nazi Party was only able to attract about a third of the vote, but Hitler came to power in 1933 through a backroom deal with an influential German named Franz von Papen. Franz von Papen wanted the position of vice chancellor, so he entered a coalition with the Nazis. Believing he could control Hitler, Franz von Papen persuaded his supporters and numerous influential politicians to back Hitler's appointment as Chancellor of Germany. By the time Franz von Papen realized that he could not control Hitler, Hitler had made himself dictator of Germany. Let's proceed into how Hitler operated as a dictator. Hitler, like Mussolini, immediately set to work to destroy the free press. He came up with a catchy slogan to discredit reporters called Lügenpresse, which translated to lying press. On September 1st, 1939, Hitler ordered the invasion of Poland. The German people had no idea that their government had embarked on an act of aggression that would lead to a devastating war. There was a repeated exposure effect where when the mass mind was dull and sluggish, and for ideas to take root, they must be constantly reseeded and repeated. Lies are most effective if they are wrapped around a kernel of truth. An example of a message was, quote, "Wake up, Germany, the Jews must rot," unquote. When a message like this exhausts a person's senses, they unwittingly give in, and the message penetrates. The mind and spirit of the citizens must be thus conquered. This message would have people think Jewish people are the problem and would be hesitant to help out a struggling Jewish person. People were also presented with a simple choice. Either the Germans or the Jewish people win. People would read news articles that claim Jewish people and other undesirables were being deported east so they could work in labor camps. When the war was over, they believed they could be freed. However, many ordinary Germans, controlled with a bliss of lies, engage in willful belief. As you can tell, Hitler's narrative that Jewish people were to blame for the crisis occurring in Germany had spread around so many times that people started to take it as fact. They even felt inclined to believe it when they believed they were in a moral dilemma of standing for their country or standing with an enemy. Again, with no pushback, Hitler's influence continued to take over Germany. Let's continue with World War II. Nazis received secret intelligence that the British and Americans will invade the Third Reich, by way of Norway. This is why Hitler ordered their forces to Norway to head off the invasion. However, the Allies coordinated and carried out a secret disinformation intelligence campaign designed to make the Nazis believe the attack would come by way of the North Sea. Their deception methods included double agents passing fake reports to Germans, fictitious radio transmissions about fake supply routes, and inflatable Sherman tanks and armadillos of decoy landing crafts. Essentially, this method was creating an internal divide in Nazi Germany. While the Nazis were expecting an invasion from the north, the Allies launched the largest amphibious military assault in history. 160,000 American, British, and Canadian troops landed on a 55-mile stretch of French beaches. The Nazis were taken by surprise since they were brought down by the same disinformation tactics they perfected. Walter Schultz Wetschestein, head of the district propaganda office of the propaganda ministry, Berlin, Brandenburg Kurbark, wrote, quote, "Propaganda is only meaningful and believable when it can show positive results. Even the best propaganda cannot conceal constant political failures," unquote. This means if the propaganda message is not showing success, people will start to notice its failure. When Hitler understood that Germany would lose the war, he killed himself in his bunker. The Allies liberated the resettlement camps and discovered what had long been an open secret. The camps had been used for the systematic genocide of almost 11 million men, women, and children. 6 million of the slaughtered were Jews. Others included European Roma, homosexuals, and others considered undesirable by the Nazis. Hitler's spectacular defeat and the evils of the Nazi regime discredited fascism for a few decades until it reappeared in a slightly altered form towards the end of the 20th century. We will talk more about that in the next few videos in this set series, but as you can see again, when fascism suffers a major loss, people will feel hesitant to go along with it until a new leader ignites those fascist feelings again. In conclusion, the rise of Nazi Germany shows how dangerous propaganda and disinformation can be when they go unchallenged, since that was how Germany operated for a specific time period. Adolf Hitler and Joseph Goebbels built their power not through truth or democratic ideals, but through lies repeated so often that they began to feel real. By blaming Germany's economic struggles on Jewish people, they pulled a nation into dictatorship, war, and genocide. The horrific outcome, World War II, and the murder of millions of innocent people reveals the destructive power of unchecked propaganda and the importance of critical thinking, free press, and moral courage. The Nazi regime ultimately fell and people stopped going along with their fascist actions for a while, but the disinformation tactics would not disappear. As we are seeing with these historical events so far, fascism can reemerge whenever people are fearful, divided, or searching for easy answers on solving an issue. Understanding how Hitler gained power helps us recognize these fascist signs today and reminds us that resisting disinformation and embracing the truth are responsibilities each of us must take seriously. In the next video, we will talk about active measures people use to get people in Western democracies to lose confidence in their democratic systems and democratically elected officials. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and turn on the post notifications so you will be notified when I post my next video. I appreciate your support. Remember, you are powerful, you are capable, and you are the changemaker our society needs. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you soon.